Okay, so let's learn the basics of the box model. Basically, the idea is HTML elements can be considered as boxes. There's the content, so we can specify the width and the height of the content. Beyond the width and the height, there's padding, and that'll give you some padding between the content and the border. And then, so you can also specify border, of course. And then between the border and other elements, you can have margin, so that it'll give space between the border and other things on the page. Okay, so content, the content of the box where text and images appear. Padding, it clears an area around the content. Border, it goes around the padding and the content. And margin clears an area outside of the border. Okay, I'm going to show you, we're going to look at now borders and margins. And if you go to W3 Schools here, there's a whole section here: borders, margins, paddings, height, width, and box model. And all of these talk about different ways. They're actually very similar, where you can do border styles, border width, border color, individual sides, so border top, border right. I usually use the border shorthand property, where you can specify the width, the style, and the color all together. Right? Same thing, border left, this, width, type, or style, and color. Okay, so I find that shorthand property is what I usually use. So to show you that, I'm actually going to do something at the very top here. I'm going to use the universal selector. That's the star, stands for the universal selector. And I'm going to go border 2 pixels solid green. Why not? So this should select all elements and give all elements a border. And I'm hoping this will really show you the box model. So there's a box here. That's my, oh dear, what is that? That's probably my HTML. There's a box here, which I'm guessing is my body. There's a box here, which is my H1. There's a box here, which is an H2. There's a paragraph. This A tag has its own box. The image has a box. This is a paragraph. The input element is a box, right? So this list, the list is a box, and each LI element is a box inside of that. The audio element is a box. Crazy. Okay, so you can think of all of these things as boxes. Now, obviously, we don't want this, but I just wanted to show you that, yeah, all of these elements can be considered boxes where you have these border and padding and stuff like that. Okay, so let's save. Okay, good, there we go. And notice I commented out that question mark background. We'll bring it back later, but for now, old lace. Looks lovely. I just saw old lace and I thought that was funny, so we went with old lace. All right, let us focus on this button here, Mark Quiz. And actually, before we do that, let's try this. Now on the body, we had a margin left. This is really close to the bottom. I'm going to go margin bottom 150 pixels. And that should now give us a little more space, right? So you should see now if I did the border on the body, 1 pixel solid green, we should see that there's margin, right, which is outside the border. We could have actually also gone padding bottom 150 pixels. And now you'll see that the border goes down to the bottom. There's actually a default margin on the body that we're seeing there. But this is now the padding, right? So the content ends here on my body, but then I have some padding that pushes the border down. Anyway, I want to focus on this Mark Quiz a little bit and look at this as a box and see what we can style it as. What was that? That was my button element. Right, and I only have one button, just because this would select all buttons. Otherwise, I could use a class to select just this one button. That's okay. Let's start by doing background color, maybe navy. Beautiful. That's not beautiful. And text color white. Okay, that looks a little bit better. But what I'd like to do with this, and maybe see how it's got a gray border? Maybe I want a black border. Border 2 pixels solid black. and we should now see that it's got a black border. Actually, if we really wanted to see that, actually, maybe we should try white. Oh, what's going on? I don't see the white very much. Maybe the white is blending in with the old lace. Oh yeah, there it is. There is definitely white there. It just wasn't very big. Okay, anyway, whatever. Let's keep it as a black if we wanted to put a border on it. Now, I could also do some, what else do I want to do with this? Maybe font size. It's pretty small. Now, this isn't teaching you about, sorry, I got to get back to the box model. Anyway, I don't like how crowded it is, so I'd like to add some padding, right? I want some space between the content and between the border. So I'm going to go padding, and again with padding, if I were to go to padding here, you can see that we can do individual sides, padding top, right, bottom. There's also the shorthand property. If you give 4 values, it goes clockwise, top, right, bottom, left. If you give 3 values, it's top, right, and left, and bottom. If you give 2 values, it's top and bottom, right, and left. So that's what I'm going to do. I just want to go 5 pixels top and bottom, and maybe 15 pixels left and right. And that should now give me a little more space. Maybe I'll change that to 10. You can play around with that, and that gives you padding. So you'll see how that I haven't done width and height at all, but that's another thing we can look at as well is height and width. So let's just try, what if I do my width of 300 pixels? Woo, there it goes. Okay, and it looks like the default style is text align center, which is pretty cool. But because now I think that my padding, the left and right padding now doesn't do much because I have the width, right? It's wide enough anyway, and I'm centering, but the top and bottom would still be useful. Okay, but let's, I don't want going all over the place here. I don't want the width. Let's just keep the padding. Okay, anyway, so that shows you, right, that we can add a border on this thing. We can do padding. We can change the width and the height if we wanted to. What else? Oh yeah, margin, right? We could go, margin left, 50 pixels if we wanted it to move off to the side there. And actually what I'd like to do is I was thinking about adding, after the button here, adding some text. Where when they hit the mark quiz, we could do some text that would say, oh, why did it kick me out? Whatever. I can do some text that'll say what their score is. So your score is blank out of 3, and maybe in brackets we'll go blank %, right? Give them their score as a percentage as well. So let's save that. Your score is this. Now, oh, you know what? The styling is in here. Let's put this button and text into a paragraph, just so we get the styling. But what I was thinking with this is now, you know what? This text here and the button are pretty close together. I'd like to space it out a bit more. But remember, that extra white space doesn't do anything. So the way that I would space these elements out more is by adding margin, right? So that this box has some margin that'll spread things out. So we can do that by going margin right, 50 pixels maybe. And that now pushed that over 50 pixels. Cool. Maybe that's a little too much, so I'll just go 25. All right. Okay, so that's the box model. Last thing I want to show you is we can use a div. A div is often used as a container for other elements, a division or a section. And it's often used with layout and stuff like that, although we don't do much layout. But what my strategy here is, I would like to put everything inside of a div. I'm going to go div, so the open tag and close tag. And I'm going to take everything, the headings, all the questions, the results, cut that, Control X, and paste inside of my div. I want to format the document here. Boop. So that, oh dear, that did some extra stuff. Okay, this is that prettier program that I'm not familiar with. Oh, and it added those tags? Okay, hold on. Undo. I'm just going to select all of this again and just hit a Shift Tab. Right, Tab will move it to the right, Shift Tab will move it back. Okay, because I just want it indented once and show that it's all of this stuff is now inside of the div. And you will see nothing. Okay, a div by itself doesn't change anything. But by doing that div, we can now select the div and go background color white, let's say. And now you can see this is my div and this is my body, right? The div is inside of the body. Now this allows us to do some cool stuff because what I have right now is I do not like, this looks okay on, like if you're on a phone, right, on a very narrow screen, this looks all right. But as we make this wider, no, this isn't looking good. So I want to give my div a fixed width and center it, and then all you'll see is extra border on the outside. Okay, but first let's add some padding to my div. Padding, I'm going to go maybe 20 pixels top and bottom, 150 pixels left and right. So I just add some extra space up here and some space on the sides. Right, like so. We've still got that extra padding bottom on her body. Oh, well, that's okay. Now what I want to do, right, so as this gets bigger, it's still going to get wider and wider. I don't like that. I want to keep the width smaller. So I'm going to go maybe a width of 600 pixels. And now you'll see, cool, okay, so now it sticks at that this from here to here is 600 pixels, and I've got padding on the right and the left, and padding on the top and the bottom. That looks pretty good. But notice as the screen gets wider, that doesn't look good. I want it to stay centered. Now there's a magical thing for that, Margin Auto. And what Margin Auto does is it says how much free space is there. And depending on how much free space there is, it'll automatically distribute the free space left and right. Let's first take off this margin left here because that's messing things up. Okay, Margin Auto now, as you make it bigger, it automatically balances the left and right margin. And as you make it smaller, it'll reposition. And if I go smaller than that, it doesn't shrink because it stays at a fixed width. Okay, that's cool. My body, there's a little bit of a default margin here, so I'm going to tell my body to have a margin of 0, and that'll get rid of that. Okay, cool. This is still, that's still that margin bottom, or the padding bottom, actually. Okay, I can get rid of that. But maybe I do want some more space, but I would do that here now. I'm going to add another number here, 100 pixels. So this will be top, this will be left, right, and this will be bottom. And that should add some more space down there. Okay, looking good. Now, last thing I wanted to show you with this is let's go back to our, uncomment that out, those question marks, right? So if you like those question marks in the background, a little more lively, you'll notice that the div, we can now see our text no problem, and that background we can still see, and the div just has color over top of it. Okay. One thing I think I forgot to show you earlier on when we were talking about RGB, there's another color style called RGBA. So RGB 255, 255, 255 would give me white, which it already is. Wonderful. But if you add an RGBA, you can add a fourth value for transparency. So 0.8, let's say, gives you some transparency. 1 is fully opaque, 0 is fully transparent, so 0.4 will be like, you can barely see it. 0.9 would be almost. So you can kind of give this, see the background through a little bit, but still read the text easily. Okay, that's pretty cool. Hope that made sense. Take care and see you in the next video.